Picture this. You wake up to the blaring sound of your alarm, already feeling behind before your feet even hit the floor. Your phone buzzes with a dozen notifications, emails piling up, social media demanding attention, news headlines screaming about another crisis. You rush through breakfast, fight traffic, juggle endless tasks at work, then come home to a mountain of chores. By bedtime, you're exhausted but can't sleep because your mind won't stop racing about tomorrow's to-do list. Sound familiar? This is modern life, a never-ending cycle of busyness that leaves us drained yet strangely unfulfilled. But what if I told you there's an ancient antidote to this madness? A philosophy practiced by Roman emperors and Greek thinkers that cuts through the noise like a knife through butter. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or living like a robot. It's about reclaiming your peace by focusing on what truly matters. Over 2,000 years ago, Stoics discovered 30 simple rules for living with clarity and purpose, rules that work just as powerfully today as they did in ancient marketplaces and battlefields. Imagine waking up calm instead of anxious. Picture handling setbacks with unshakable confidence. Envision a life where you're no longer tossed around by every little inconvenience or distraction. In this video, we're going to walk through each of these 30 Stoic rules together, practical wisdom you can start applying immediately to declutter your mind, simplify your days, and build resilience against life's chaos. Whether you're overwhelmed by responsibilities, frustrated by things beyond your control, or just craving more meaning in your daily routine, these principles will be your anchor. So take a deep breath, press pause on the chaos for the next few minutes. Let's begin this journey to a simpler, stronger you. Now let's dive into the first and perhaps most powerful Stoic rule: focus only on what you can control. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. Your hands grip the wheel, your heart races, and frustration boils over. But here's the Stoic question: can you magically clear the road ahead? No, the traffic is entirely outside your control. What you can control is your reaction, whether you let anger ruin your morning or use the delay to listen to a podcast, reflect, or simply breathe. This is the Stoic dichotomy of control, a simple but life-changing idea. Some things are up to us and some things are not. Your thoughts, actions, and choices. Up to you, the weather, other people's opinions, or unexpected setbacks. Not up to you. Think about work stress, a project deadline gets moved up, or a coworker drops the ball. You can't control those events, but you can control how you prepare, adapt, and communicate. Stoics like Epictetus taught that suffering comes from confusing what's ours to manage with what isn't. When you stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable, two things happen. Anxiety shrinks because you're no longer fighting unwinnable battles, and resilience grows because you channel your effort where it actually matters. Here's the practice. Next time you feel overwhelmed, pause and ask, is this within my control? If yes, take action. If no, let it go. This mindset isn't about giving up, it's about focusing your power where it counts. Traffic won't vanish, but your peace of mind can. Now that we've explored the power of focusing on what you can control, let's make it practical. The Stoics didn't just preach this idea, they lived it through daily exercises. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, started each morning with a simple ritual. He'd sit quietly and remind himself of what lay within his control and what didn't. You can do the same. Grab a notebook and try this. Every morning, write down 3 things you can influence today: your effort, your attitude, your priorities. Then list 3 things you can't: the weather, traffic, other people's moods. This simple act trains your brain to spot the difference before stress even hits. Another powerful tool is the evening review. Before bed, ask yourself 2 questions. Where did I focus my energy today? And did I waste time on things beyond my control? Be honest, maybe you obsessed over a rude comment or fretted about a future event. No judgment, just awareness. Over time, this practice sharpens your ability to redirect energy where it matters. For deeper reflection, borrow a technique from Epictetus, the reserve clause. When setting a goal, add the phrase, fate permitting. For example, I'll finish this project by Friday, fate permitting. This reminds you to commit fully while accepting that outcomes aren't entirely yours to command. Try these exercises for a week and watch how your mind starts to default to what's truly yours to shape. The traffic jam won't change, but your reaction to it will. Now let's shift to something that might feel counterintuitive at first, the idea of seeking discomfort. Stoics like Epictetus believed that voluntary hardship was the ultimate training ground for life's inevitable challenges. Think of it like this. If you've ever practiced lifting weights, you know the only way to get stronger is by pushing your limits. The same applies to your mind. Epictetus famously said, "The obstacle is the way." He didn't mean obstacles disappear, he meant they become opportunities. When you willingly face discomfort, like taking a cold shower or skipping a meal, you're not punishing yourself, you're rehearsing resilience. Imagine a day when your car breaks down or your Wi-Fi crashes. If you've trained in discomfort, those moments won't throw you off. Instead, you'll meet them with calm focus. Start small. Try a cold shower for just 30 seconds tomorrow morning. Notice how your body reacts, how your mind races, and how quickly you adapt. Or skip breakfast once a week, not to starve yourself, but to remind your brain that temporary hunger isn't an emergency. These tiny acts rewire your relationship with discomfort, teaching you that you're far more capable than comfort lets you believe. The goal isn't to suffer for suffering's sake. It's to prove to yourself that life's unpredictability doesn't have to dictate your peace. When you embrace discomfort on your terms, the discomfort life throws at you loses its power. And that's how obstacles truly become the way. Now that we've explored why discomfort is a Stoic superpower, let's put it into action with a practical 7-day challenge. This isn't about extreme suffering, it's about small, intentional steps to build mental toughness. Each day, you'll tackle a new task designed to stretch your comfort zone just enough to grow. Day 1, start with a digital detox. For 24 hours, avoid all non-essential screens, no social media, no endless scrolling. Notice how often your hand reaches for your phone out of habit. This isn't just about distraction, it's about reclaiming focus and proving you control your attention. Day 2, simplify your meals. Eat the same modest breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Something nutritious but plain, like oatmeal, rice, and vegetables. This isn't a diet, it's a reminder that pleasure isn't the only purpose of food. You'll see how little you actually need to feel nourished. Day 3, wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual. Use that time for reflection or a short walk. The goal isn't lost sleep, it's practicing discipline with your time. When you choose discomfort over convenience, you train your mind to prioritize what matters. Day 4, wear the same outfit all day, even if it's not your favorite. Stoics like Musonius Rufus taught that vanity distracts from virtue. This exercise isn't about fashion, it's about detaching from external validation. Day 5, take the cold shower challenge again, but this time extend it to a full minute. Observe how your initial resistance fades as you breathe through it. This is resilience in real time, your body and mind adapting to discomfort. Day 6, practice silence for 1 hour. Avoid speaking unless absolutely necessary. Listen more, react less. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason." This isn't about muting yourself, it's about valuing thoughtful communication over chatter. Day 7, end the challenge by doing something kind anonymously. Pay for a stranger's coffee or leave an encouraging note in a public place. Stoicism isn't just about enduring hardship, it's about transforming it into goodness. By the end of the week, you won't just have survived discomfort, you'll have rewritten your relationship with it. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. And every small step proves that resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, one cold shower, one quiet moment, one simple meal at a time. Now that we've built resilience through discomfort, let's explore a Stoic tool that transforms fear into gratitude. Rule 3 is all about negative visualization, or what the ancient Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the practice of deliberately imagining loss to deepen your appreciation for what you have right now. Think of it as mental armor against taking life for granted. Seneca wrote letters reminding his friends to cherish their loved ones as if today were their last conversation. He wasn't being morbid, he was teaching them to savor the present. Picture this: you wake up and mentally rehearse losing your job, your health, or even the people closest to you. For a moment, let that sting, then open your eyes and realize none of it has happened. Suddenly, the ordinary feels extraordinary. Your morning coffee, the sound of a family member's laughter, even the comfort of your bed. This isn't about dwelling on doom. It's about recognizing that everything is temporary, which makes it precious. The Stoics didn't practice this to suffer, they did it to strip away indifference. When you regularly confront the fragility of life, you stop postponing joy. You hug tighter, listen closer, and waste less time on trivial frustrations. Seneca put it best: he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. By rehearsing loss, you immunize yourself against panic when challenges actually arise. And more importantly, you uncover a hidden superpower, the ability to find depth in the everyday. Try it tonight before sleep. Ask yourself, what if I lost this tomorrow? Then let the answer guide you to gratitude today. Now that we understand the power of negative visualization, let's turn this philosophy into a daily habit you can practice in just 5 minutes each evening. Here's how to weave Stoic gratitude into your routine. Start by finding a quiet space, maybe your bedside or a favorite chair. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Then bring to mind one thing you deeply value but often take for granted: your health, a relationship, even the roof over your head. Now imagine it's gone. Sit with that feeling for a moment. Notice how your chest tightens or your throat clenches. That discomfort is your mind waking up to appreciation. Next, open your eyes and grab a journal. Write down the thing you just imagined losing, but now frame it as a gift. For example, today, I'm grateful for my ability to walk because, or I cherish my sister's texts because. Dig deeper than surface level thanks. Maybe walking lets you feel the breeze on your face, or those texts remind you you're never alone. The Stoics didn't just think about loss, they used it to fuel action. So add one tiny line to your entry. Tomorrow, I'll honor this by. It could be as simple as stretching your legs mindfully or calling your sister without waiting for her to text first. This bridges reflection with real-world change. Seneca did this nightly, calling it his evening audit. By pairing imagined loss with concrete gratitude, you're not just counting blessings, you're making them count. Over time, this ritual rewires your brain to spot abundance where you once saw lack. And that's how 5 minutes a day can build a lifetime of resilience and joy. Tomorrow, we'll explore how the Stoics aligned their lives with nature, a rule that turns simplicity into strength. But tonight, try this practice. The coffee you'll drink tomorrow morning might just taste richer because of it. Now let's shift our focus to a principle that ties everything together: living according to nature. This isn't about camping or eating organic food, though. For the Stoics, nature meant something far deeper. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that true simplicity comes from aligning your life with reason and the universal order of things. Imagine a river flowing effortlessly downstream. It doesn't fight the current or waste energy on unnecessary detours. That's how the Stoics saw a well-lived life, in harmony with the natural logic of the world. Here's the catch: modern life often pulls us in the opposite direction. Consumerism bombards us with messages that happiness lies in the next purchase, the bigger house, or the trendier wardrobe. But the Stoics would argue that this endless chase creates chaos, not contentment. Think about it. When you clutter your life with things you don't truly need, you're not just filling your closet, you're crowding your mind. Zeno's insight was radical for its time and still is today. Real freedom comes from wanting less, not acquiring more. So how do we apply this? Start by asking yourself one question with every decision. Does this align with my nature? Not nature as in instincts, but nature as in your highest self, your reason and values. For example, that impulse buy at the checkout line might feel satisfying in the moment, but does it serve your long-term peace? Or consider how scrolling through social media for hours fractures your attention. Does that reflect the focused, intentional life you want to live? The beauty of this rule is its simplicity. Living according to nature isn't about deprivation, it's about clarity. It's choosing a few meaningful relationships over a packed social calendar, or a quiet evening reading over a noisy night out just because you should. When you strip away what's unnecessary, you make room for what truly matters. Up next, we'll confront one of Stoicism's most powerful and often misunderstood practices, remembering your mortality. But for now, take a look around. What's one thing in your life that feels out of sync with your nature? Maybe it's time to let the river carry it away. Now let's turn to a practice that might seem unsettling at first, but holds incredible power, remembering your own mortality. The Stoics called this Memento Mori, Latin for remember you must die. Far from being morbid, this was a tool for clarity. Ancient Stoics kept skulls on their desks not as decorations, but as reminders to live with purpose. When you confront the fact that your time is limited, suddenly the trivial distractions lose their grip, and what truly matters comes into sharp focus. Think of Steve Jobs' famous Stanford speech where he said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life." He wasn't being dramatic, he was channeling Stoic wisdom. Death strips away illusions, that argument you're holding onto, the job you hate but won't leave. The dream you keep postponing, mortality whispers, if not now, when? Here's the paradox, the more you accept life's impermanence, the more vibrant it becomes. Imagine holding a fragile glass vase. You'd handle it with care, appreciating its beauty precisely because it could break. That's how the Stoics approached life. Every sunrise, every conversation, every quiet moment gains weight when you know it won't last forever. So how do you practice this without spiraling into dread? Start small. Each morning, take just 10 seconds to acknowledge, today could be my last. Not to scare yourself, but to wake yourself up. Then ask, if this were my final day, would I spend it this way? You don't need a skull on your desk, just a willingness to let death sharpen your priorities. Up next, we'll take this idea even further with a simple ritual to make Memento Mori a practical part of your life. But for now, consider this. What would you stop wasting time on if you truly believed your days were numbered? The answer might just set you free. Now let's take this idea of Memento Mori and turn it into something tangible. A ritual you can practice every week to keep life's brevity front and center. Start by carving out a small space in your home, even just a corner of a room dedicated to this reflection. It doesn't need to be elaborate, just a quiet spot where you can sit undisturbed. Place a few meaningful objects there, an hourglass to visualize time slipping away, old photos of loved ones to remind you of what's precious, or even a simple candle to symbolize the fragility of life. The key is consistency. Set aside 10 minutes each week, maybe Sunday evening or early Monday, to sit in this space and reflect. Ask yourself 2 questions. What did I do this past week that truly mattered? And if I died tomorrow, would I be at peace with how I spent my time? This isn't about guilt or fear, it's about clarity. The Stoics believed that confronting death regularly strips away life's distractions, leaving only what's essential. For a deeper practice, try writing a short letter to yourself as if it were your last. What would you want to say? What regrets would you confess? What joys would you celebrate? Keep these letters in a box and revisit them every few months. You'll start noticing patterns, the things you repeatedly wish you'd done differently, and that's where real change begins. This ritual isn't meant to be gloomy. It's a wake-up call, a way to live with more intention. When you're aware that time is limited, you stop postponing the things that light you up. You say, "I love you" more often. You take the trip, you quit the job that drains your soul. Death, oddly enough, becomes a compass pointing you toward vitality. Up next, we'll explore how to love your fate even when it feels impossible. But for now, consider this. What would your life look like if you treated every week as if it were your last? The answer might surprise you. Now let's shift our focus to one of the most transformative Stoic principles, amor fati, or the love of fate. This idea, later embraced by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, goes beyond mere acceptance of life's twists and turns. It's about embracing every moment, every setback, as if you'd chosen it yourself. Imagine looking at your life's challenges, a job loss, a breakup, even a failure, and saying, "This too is part of my story, and I wouldn't have it any other way." That's the power of amor fati. Take Nietzsche's famous example of the demon who offers to replay your life exactly as it was, with all its pain and joy forever. Would you say yes? The Stoics would argue that true freedom comes from answering yes to that question right now without hesitation. When you love your fate, you stop resisting reality and start finding opportunity in every circumstance. A job loss becomes a chance to pivot toward work that aligns with your values. A rejection opens the door to something better suited for you. Even suffering becomes a teacher, shaping resilience and depth. Here's how to practice this in daily life. Next time something goes wrong, pause and ask, "How can this serve me?" Maybe a missed flight gives you unexpected time to reflect. A project falling apart reveals a skill you need to develop. The Stoics didn't just endure hardship, they mined it for wisdom. Epictetus, born into slavery, turned his suffering into a philosophy of unshakable inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire plagued by war and plague, yet his journals overflow with gratitude for the chance to grow through adversity. Try this reframing exercise. Write down a recent setback, then list 3 ways it might benefit you in the long run. For example, that job loss could push you to finally start the business you've dreamed of. A health scare might deepen your appreciation for each day. Amor fati isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about trusting that even the hard parts are sculpting you into someone stronger, wiser, and more alive. As we move forward, remember this: fate doesn't ask for your permission, but you get to choose how you respond. Will you fight reality, or will you love it into something meaningful? The answer changes everything. Now, let's take amor fati a step further with a practical exercise to rewire how you see life's so-called bad events. Think of a moment when something didn't go your way. Maybe a project flopped, a relationship ended, or a plan fell apart. Instead of labeling it as a failure, let's role-play how it might actually be a hidden pivot point. Here's how it works. First, pick a past setback and write it down. Next, imagine you're advising a close friend who went through the same thing. What would you tell them? You'd probably highlight the lessons, the strength they gained, or the new doors that opened. Now, apply that same kindness to yourself. For example, that breakup you thought shattered you. It might have been the push you needed to rediscover your passions or build deeper connections. That missed promotion, it could have kept you from a role that would have drained your joy. Try this 3-part reframe. 1. Ask, what did this teach me? Maybe patience, resilience, or clarity about what you truly want. 2. Ask, how did this protect me? Sometimes what feels like a loss shields us from bigger pitfalls. 3. Ask, what became possible because of this? That business idea, that move to a better city, that chance to rebuild on your own terms. None of it might have happened without the failure that came first. The Stoics didn't just preach this idea, they lived it. Seneca, exiled and stripped of his wealth, called it a change of place with added peace. Epictetus, crippled by a cruel master, said his disability taught him what truly mattered. Your struggles aren't exceptions to a good life, they're the raw materials for building one. So the next time life throws you a curveball, play this mental game. How will I later thank this moment? That's amor fati in action, and as we move forward, keep this in mind. Every setback is a setup for a comeback, if you choose to see it that way. Now, let's shift our focus to something that might feel uncomfortably familiar: the endless chase for external validation. Rule 7 is about deleting vanity, and it's a wake-up call straight from Seneca himself. He warned that constantly seeking approval from others is like building your happiness on quicksand. The more you rely on likes, comments, or compliments, the less stable your self-worth becomes. Think about how often you check your reflection or scroll through social media, comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel. That's vanity in its modern disguise. It's not just about admiring yourself, it's about needing others to admire you too. Seneca called this out centuries ago, saying, "What's the point of wearing a mask if you're only happy when others applaud it?" Here's a challenge to break the cycle. Try a vanity fast. For 1 week, avoid mirrors except for essential grooming and take 0 selfies. No posting, no checking how you look, no fishing for compliments. At first, it might feel strange, even unsettling, but that discomfort is the point. You'll start noticing how much mental energy you've been wasting on appearances instead of actions. Without the mirror's constant feedback, you'll reconnect with how you feel, not just how you look. Without selfies, you'll experience moments for what they are, not how they'll perform online. And here's the real test. If no one sees or praises what you do, does it still matter to you? That's the heart of Stoic self-sufficiency. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you delete vanity, you reclaim your time, attention, and joy. No external validation required. So give the vanity fast a try. You might just find that the person you've been seeking approval from all along was you. And as we move forward, remember this: the less you need others to define your worth, the more freedom you'll discover in simply being yourself. Now, let's turn our attention to something equally powerful but often overlooked: the words we choose to speak. Rule 8 is about mastering the art of mindful communication, and it comes straight from the wisdom of Epictetus. He taught that every word we utter should pass what he called the triple filter test. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? Think about how often we speak without pausing to consider these questions. We might gossip, complain, or fill the silence with empty words simply because we're uncomfortable with quiet. But Epictetus reminds us that speaking less isn't about being shy. It's about being intentional. When we filter our speech through these 3 questions, we strip away the noise and leave only what truly matters. Here's a practical way to put this into action. Try a silent day challenge. Pick one day where you commit to speaking only when absolutely necessary, and when you do, make sure your words pass the triple filter test. No small talk, no venting, no idle chatter, just purposeful, meaningful communication. At first, it might feel awkward, maybe even isolating, but that discomfort is where the growth happens. You'll start noticing how much of your speech is reactive rather than thoughtful. You'll become more aware of the weight your words carry, both for yourself and others. And most importantly, you'll discover the clarity that comes from saying less but meaning more. Epictetus believed that our words are a reflection of our character. When we speak little and well, we cultivate discipline, integrity, and respect for ourselves and those around us. So give the silent day challenge a try. You might just find that the quiet spaces between your words hold more wisdom than the words themselves. And as we move forward, remember this: the power of your voice isn't measured by how much you say, but by how much it matters when you do. Now let's shift our perspective on what it truly means to be wealthy. Rule 9 flips the script on conventional success by showing us that real wealth isn't about having more, it's about needing less. This idea was embodied perfectly by Diogenes, the ancient philosopher who famously lived in a barrel, owning nothing but a cloak and a wooden bowl. When he saw a child drinking water with his hands, he threw away his bowl, realizing even that was excess. Diogenes didn't just preach simplicity, he lived it, proving that freedom comes from letting go, not accumulating. Fast forward to today, and we're bombarded with what some call success porn, endless images of luxury cars, designer clothes, and sprawling mansions that equate happiness with possession. But here's the irony: the more we chase these external markers of wealth, the more we chain ourselves to endless desire. The Stoics understood this trap. They taught that true abundance isn't found in what we own, but in how little we require to feel content. Let's put this into numbers. Imagine your monthly expenses right now. Now, strip away everything that isn't essential: the subscriptions you barely use, the impulse buys, the upgrades you don't truly need. For many people, cutting these non-essentials can reduce their required income by as much as 30%. That's not just a smaller budget, it's less stress, fewer working hours, and more freedom to focus on what genuinely matters. This isn't about living in deprivation. It's about distinguishing between wants and needs. Every time you resist an unnecessary purchase or declutter your space, you're not just saving money, you're reclaiming your time, energy, and peace of mind. The less you desire, the richer you become, because you're no longer a slave to the next paycheck or the next trend. So ask yourself, what could you let go of today? What if the key to wealth isn't earning more, but wanting less? Diogenes showed us that happiness fits in a barrel. The question is, how much space do you really need? And as we move forward, remember this: the most valuable things in life, peace, freedom, time, aren't bought. They're uncovered by stripping away everything that doesn't matter. Now, let's turn our attention to something even more precious than money: time. Rule 10 reminds us to guard our time like gold, because unlike wealth, time is the one resource we can never earn back. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, put it perfectly in his essay on the shortness of life when he wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about that for a moment. The average person lives around 75 to 80 years, yet how much of that is spent on things that don't truly matter? Seneca observed that people often complain about life being short, but the real issue is how carelessly they squander their days. We trade hours for mindless scrolling, binge-watching shows we won't remember, or stressing over trivial problems that won't matter in a year. The Stoics urge us to treat time as our most valuable currency, because once it's spent, it's gone forever. So how do we stop the leak? Start by conducting a time audit. For 1 week, track how you spend every hour. You might be shocked to see how much disappears into what Seneca called the barren cultivation of trivialities. Next, apply the Stoic urgency matrix. Divide your activities into 4 categories: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither urgent nor important. That last category, that's where most of our time wasters live: endless social media feeds, gossip, or shows that add no real value to your life. The goal isn't to eliminate all leisure, but to be intentional. Ask yourself, does this activity nourish my mind, strengthen my relationships, or move me toward my goals? If not, it's likely stealing time you could spend on what truly enriches your life. Seneca's wisdom cuts deep. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. We procrastinate as if we have endless time, then wake up one day wondering where it all went. Here's the challenge. This week, reclaim just 30 minutes a day from low-value activities. Use it to read, meditate, or connect with someone you love. Small shifts compound into years of reclaimed life, because in the end, wealth fades, but how you spent your time becomes your legacy. And as we move forward, remember, time isn't just passing. You're trading it for something. Make sure the exchange is worth it. Now that we've seen how easily time slips through our fingers, let's take this a step further with the 80-20 time cleanse. This isn't just about tracking your hours. It's about ruthlessly prioritizing the moments that truly move the needle in your life. The idea is simple. 80% of your results come from just 20% of your actions. So why waste energy on the rest? Start by reviewing your week-long time audit. Look for patterns. Which activities drained you without offering any real return. Maybe it's that extra hour scrolling before bed, or the meetings that could have been emails. These are your bottom 20%, the tasks that suck time but add no joy, growth, or meaning. The Stoics would call these preferred indifference, things that might feel urgent but ultimately don't align with virtue or purpose. Here's how to cut them. First, list every low-value activity you identified. Then, ask yourself 2 Stoic questions. Does this serve my higher goals? And if I stopped doing this tomorrow, would my life be worse? If the answer is no, it's time to let it go. You don't have to quit cold turkey. Start by reducing these time wasters by half. Replace them with something from your top 20%, reading, creating, or deepening relationships. For example, swap 30 minutes of social media for 30 minutes of journaling, using Marcus Aurelius' approach of asking, "What did I do today that aligned with wisdom or courage?" Or trade a gossip-filled coffee break for a walk where you practice mindfulness, observing nature like Seneca did on his strolls. The key is substitution, not deprivation. By the end of this cleanse, you'll notice something powerful. The less clutter in your schedule, the more space you have for what the Stoics called eudaimonia, flourishing. And remember, this isn't a one-time fix. Life will always try to refill your calendar with trivialities. But now, you have the tools to guard your time like the finite treasure it is. Up next, we'll explore how to stay flexible when life throws curveballs, because even the best plans need room to adapt. Now let's talk about the power of flexibility, because even the most disciplined Stoic knows that life rarely follows a straight path. Rule 11 teaches us to be strict with our goals but flexible with our methods. Think of it like sailing. You set your destination with unwavering clarity, but you adjust your sails constantly to navigate the winds and waves. The Stoics called this focusing on intentions rather than attachments to specific outcomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his Meditations. He didn't demand that every day unfold exactly as planned. Instead, he committed to living with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, no matter what obstacles arose. That's the key difference between a rigid plan and a Stoic intention. One shatters when reality intervenes, the other adapts and grows stronger. Take career changes, for example. Imagine you've spent years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize it's not fulfilling your deeper purpose. A rigid mindset would see this as failure, but Stoic flexibility asks, how can this pivot serve my growth? Maybe the skills you gained in that job prepare you for a more meaningful venture, or the discomfort of starting over builds resilience. Epictetus, born a slave, became a philosopher by treating every setback as a chance to refine his character. The same applies to relationships. Holding too tightly to how you think someone should act creates suffering. Instead, focus on your intention to practice patience, kindness, or boundaries while releasing control over their choices. Seneca advised treating loved ones as if today were your last conversation, not because life is grim, but because it sharpens your appreciation for what truly matters. Here's how to apply this rule. First, define your North Star. What virtue or purpose guides this goal? Maybe it's courage in starting a business or justice in mending a friendship. Then list 3 possible paths to get there. When obstacles block one route, you're already primed to switch gears without losing sight of why you began. Flexibility isn't weakness, it's the Stoic art of turning barriers into breakthroughs. And as we'll see next, this mindset becomes even more powerful when paired with the ability to forgive quickly and move forward. Now let's shift our focus to something that might feel counterintuitive at first: forgiveness. Rule 12 reminds us to forgive quickly, not because others deserve it, but because holding on to resentment only weighs us down. Marcus Aurelius had a brilliant way of dealing with irritating people in his journal entries. Instead of stewing in frustration, he'd ask himself, what virtue can I practice here? Patience, understanding, even humor. He saw every difficult person as a chance to strengthen his own character. Think about that coworker who always takes credit for your ideas, or the friend who cancels plans last minute. Our instinct might be to cling to the annoyance, replaying the situation in our heads like a broken record. But Stoicism teaches us that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The only one truly harmed is you. Here's a practical exercise to put this rule into action. Write a forgiveness letter, not to send, but to release the grudge. Start by describing what happened honestly, then shift focus to how this experience can serve your growth. Maybe it taught you resilience or revealed a boundary you need to set. Finally, consciously let it go. Burn the letter, tear it up, or simply close the journal. The act itself symbolizes reclaiming your peace. Epictetus put it bluntly: any person who doesn't wish to irritate you is in your power. In other words, irritation is a choice. When someone's actions bother you, pause and ask, is this within my control? If not, redirect that energy toward what you can control, your response. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It means refusing to let someone else's actions dictate your inner peace. And as we'll see next, this mindset opens the door to transforming envy into something far more productive. Now let's explore a powerful shift in perspective, turning envy into emulation. It's natural to feel a pang of jealousy when someone else succeeds, whether it's a colleague's promotion, a friend's new car, or even a stranger's social media highlight reel. But Stoicism asks us to reframe that emotion. Instead of letting envy fester, use it as fuel for your own growth. Think of envy as a signal, not a setback. When you catch yourself feeling jealous of someone, pause and ask, what exactly am I admiring here? Is it their discipline, their creativity, their confidence? Then take the next step, study them like a role model. If a coworker landed that promotion, observe their habits. Did they take on extra projects, improve their communication skills? Use their success as a blueprint for your own progress. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the qualities he admired in others, not to compare himself, but to learn. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." In other words, channel that energy into becoming better, not bitter. Here's a simple exercise to put this into practice. Keep a virtue notebook. Whenever you feel envy creeping in, jot down the trait or achievement that triggered it. Then outline actionable steps to cultivate that same quality in yourself. For example, if you envy a friend's calm demeanor, research Stoic techniques for emotional resilience or start a daily meditation habit. Envy, when left unchecked, is a dead end. But emulation, that's a roadmap. And as we'll see next, this mindset pairs perfectly with curating your own personal pantheon of role models, figures who embody the virtues you aspire to master. Now let's take this idea of emulation one step further by building your own personal pantheon of Stoic role models. Think of it as assembling a team of mentors, historical and modern figures who embody the virtues you want to cultivate. These aren't just people you admire from a distance. They're your guides, your inspiration, your living examples of how to navigate life with wisdom and resilience. Start by identifying qualities you want to strengthen. Is it courage? Look to figures like Cato the Younger, who stood unshaken against corruption. Need patience? Study Nelson Mandela's decades of perseverance in prison. Even modern leaders, athletes, or artists can make the cut if their actions align with Stoic principles. The key is to choose people whose lives demonstrate the traits you're working to develop. Once you've selected your role models, go deeper than just their achievements. Study their habits, their setbacks, and how they responded to adversity. Marcus Aurelius kept a mental catalogue of mentors, writing, "When you need encouragement, think of the qualities of those around you: energy, modesty, generosity." Keep a journal dedicated to these figures. Note quotes, pivotal moments in their lives, and how you can apply their lessons to your own challenges. Your pantheon isn't set in stone. As you grow, your role models might shift. Maybe you start with the discipline of a Roman general, but later find wisdom in the calm leadership of a modern CEO. The goal isn't to copy them, it's to let their examples refine your own path. And here's the beautiful part. When you surround yourself with these voices, even metaphorically, their virtues begin to echo in your choices. Which brings us to the next rule, where we'll explore how to lock those lessons into place through deliberate commitment. Now let's talk about locking in those virtues you've been cultivating with your role models. Stoics called this prohersis, a deep commitment to acting with integrity, no matter the circumstances. Think of it as setting your moral compass so firmly that even when life gets chaotic, you stay true to your principles. Here's how to put it into practice. Ever heard of Ulysses' contracts? They're named after the mythical hero who tied himself to his ship's mast to resist the siren's call. In modern terms, it's about creating barriers to temptation before it strikes. For example, delete social media apps before a focused work sprint, or schedule workouts with a friend so skipping feels harder. These aren't restrictions, they're reinforcements for your future self. The Stoics knew willpower is unreliable. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." Be one, that's prohersis in action. It's deciding in advance how you'll act, so in the moment the choice is already made. Try this tonight. Write down one virtue you want to uphold tomorrow, say patience during a hectic meeting. Then visualize yourself living it. By pre-committing, you're wiring your brain to follow through. And here's the twist. These contracts work best when they're tied to your purpose. Deleting apps isn't about punishment. It's about protecting your time for what truly matters. That's the heart of Stoic integrity. Next, we'll explore how to turn life's biggest obstacles into your greatest teachers. Now let's shift our focus to one of the most powerful Stoic principles, turning obstacles into opportunities. Ryan Holiday popularized this idea with his book, The Obstacle is the Way, but the concept goes all the way back to the ancient Stoics like Epictetus, who said, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, every challenge you face isn't just a roadblock, it's the very path to your growth. Think about a problem you're dealing with right now. Maybe it's a difficult boss, a financial setback, or even a health issue. The Stoic approach: reframe it as training. That difficult boss, they're teaching you patience and emotional control. The financial setback, it's forcing you to prioritize what truly matters. The health issue, a reminder to appreciate the days when you feel strong. Every obstacle is a chance to practice resilience, creativity, or humility, whatever virtue you need most. Here's how to put this into practice. First, identify the obstacle clearly. Write it down, then ask yourself, what can this teach me and how can this make me stronger? If you're stuck in traffic, instead of fuming, use the time to listen to a podcast or practice deep breathing. If a project at work feels overwhelming, break it into smaller steps and tackle one at a time. The key is to stop seeing obstacles as things that happen to you and start seeing them as things that happen for you. Ryan Holiday's modern take on this Stoic wisdom is simple but profound. The obstacle is the way. It's not about avoiding hardship but using it as fuel. So the next time you hit a wall, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What's this here to show me?" Because in the end, the obstacles aren't blocking your path, they are the path. And with that mindset, you're unstoppable. Coming up next, we'll dive into another transformative practice: how relentless journaling, just like Marcus Aurelius, can sharpen your mind and steady your soul. Now let's explore another timeless Stoic practice: journaling. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoics, didn't write meditations for an audience. He wrote it for himself as a way to reflect, recalibrate, and reinforce his virtues. That's the power of relentless journaling. It's not about crafting perfect sentences or documenting every detail of your day. It's about having an honest conversation with yourself, just like Marcus did. Think of your journal as a mirror for your mind. When you put your thoughts on paper, you see them more clearly. You spot patterns, confront contradictions, and uncover truths you might otherwise ignore. For example, ask yourself at the end of each day, what fears did I surrender today? Or where did I act with courage? These prompts aren't just questions, they're tools for self-awareness. They help you measure your progress, not by external achievements, but by the strength of your character. Here's a simple template to get you started. Every morning, write down one thing you're grateful for and one challenge you anticipate facing. Then, in the evening, reflect on how you handled that challenge. Did you respond with patience? Did you let frustration take over? This daily rhythm, anticipating and reviewing, trains you to live with intention. Marcus Aurelius called it the art of living. And the best part, you don't need fancy notebooks or hours of free time. Just 5 minutes of honest reflection can shift your entire perspective. So why does this work? Because journaling forces you to slow down and examine your life, just like a Stoic philosopher would. It turns abstract ideas into concrete actions. When you write, "Today I chose kindness over anger," you're not just remembering the moment, you're reinforcing the behavior. Over time, these small entries add up to a lifetime of wisdom. Next up, we'll tackle a practice that might sound extreme but is incredibly liberating: how voluntarily experiencing poverty, even for just a day, can reset your appreciation for what you truly need. Now let's shift gears to a practice that might seem radical at first, but holds profound wisdom: voluntary poverty. The Stoics believed that to truly appreciate what you have, you must occasionally experience what it's like to have very little. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, called this the paradox of poverty. It's only optional because you choose to see it that way. Here's how you can apply this idea in a practical way. Once a month, dedicate a day to living with only the bare essentials. Imagine it as a homeless day, where you strip away comforts like extra clothes, gadgets, or even your usual meals. Wear the same outfit all day, eat simple, modest food, carry only what you absolutely need. This isn't about suffering, it's about resetting your perspective. When you temporarily let go of luxuries, you realize how much of what you think you need is actually just excess. Seneca famously said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." That's the heart of this exercise. By voluntarily stepping into scarcity, you train yourself to find contentment with less. You'll notice how quickly your mind adapts, how little it actually takes to survive, and how much freedom comes from not being tied to possessions. Try this challenge and pay attention to what happens. You might feel discomfort at first, but by the end of the day, you'll likely feel lighter, more grateful, and oddly empowered. It's a reminder that happiness isn't stored in things, it's cultivated in your mindset. And that's a lesson worth revisiting often. Next, we'll explore how Stoicism encourages us to think beyond ourselves and embrace our role as citizens of the world. Now let's expand our perspective beyond ourselves and into the wider world. The Stoics weren't just focused on personal tranquility, they believed in being active participants in humanity. This idea, known as cosmopolitanism, was central to their philosophy. Hierocles, a Stoic thinker, illustrated this with his circles of concern model. Picture a series of rings radiating outward. The innermost circle is you, then your family, friends, community, and finally, all of humanity, the goal. To gradually draw those outer circles inward, treating strangers with the same care as those closest to you. How does this apply today? Think of modern activism or community volunteering. When you donate time to a local food bank, you're bridging the gap between your circle and someone else's. When you advocate for global issues like climate action or human rights, you're acting as a citizen of the world, just as the Stoics envisioned. It's not about grand gestures, small, consistent actions matter. Here's a challenge this week: pick one way to widen your circle. Maybe it's checking on a neighbor, supporting a cause you believe in, or simply listening to someone with a different viewpoint. Every act of connection strengthens the Stoic ideal of universal kinship. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What harms the hive harms the bee." We thrive when we remember we're part of something larger. Next, we'll tackle a habit that's tougher than it sounds: eliminating complaints from your life. Because Stoicism teaches that how we respond to the world shapes our peace far more than the world itself. Now let's shift our focus to something that might seem simple, but is surprisingly difficult: eliminating complaints from our daily lives. Stoicism teaches us that our peace of mind isn't dictated by external events, but by how we choose to respond to them. Complaining at its core is a surrender of our power. It keeps us stuck in cycles of frustration rather than moving us toward solutions. Epictetus offered a powerful framework for this. He said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well." In other words, instead of complaining about what you can't control, focus on what you can do. If your train is delayed, use the time to read or reflect. If a coworker is difficult, see it as practice in patience. Every irritation is an opportunity to exercise Stoic resilience. Here's the challenge: try a 48-hour no-complaint fast. For 2 full days, catch yourself every time you're about to gripe and reframe it. Instead of saying, "This traffic is unbearable," try, "This is a chance to practice calm." Instead of, "My boss is unreasonable," ask, "How can I adapt or communicate better?" The goal isn't to ignore problems, but to shift from passive frustration to active problem solving. By the end, you'll notice something profound: fewer complaints mean less stress and more mental clarity. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Next, we'll explore a lighter but equally transformative practice: learning to laugh at ourselves. Because even the Stoics knew that humility is the antidote to life's petty frustrations. Now, let's lighten the mood with a practice that might seem unexpected in Stoicism: learning to laugh at ourselves. The Stoics weren't just about grit and discipline. They understood the power of humor to dissolve ego and put life's annoyances into perspective. Take Chrysippus, one of the great Stoic thinkers, whose legendary death came from laughing too hard at his own joke. While we don't recommend taking it that far, the lesson is clear. Laughter can be a tool for humility, a way to step back and see how small our frustrations really are. Here's how to put this into action. Try a humility hour. Set aside time each week to reflect on your petty irritations, but with a twist. Write them down, then ask yourself, how ridiculous does this seem when I zoom out? Maybe you spilled coffee on your shirt and let it ruin your morning, or you snapped at someone over a minor misunderstanding. Playfully exaggerate the scenario in your mind until it becomes absurd. The goal isn't to dismiss your feelings, but to loosen their grip on you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it." Laughing at ourselves helps us avoid that trap. When we stop taking every little thing so seriously, we free up mental space for what truly matters. So the next time you catch yourself fuming over something trivial, channel Chrysippus, find the humor in it. After all, as the Stoics knew, life's too short not to laugh at the comedy of being human. Up next, we'll dive into another practice that sharpens the mind: deliberate reading. Because in a world of endless scrolling, the Stoics would remind us that true wisdom comes from depth, not distraction. Now, let's shift our focus to a practice that might feel countercultural in today's fast-paced world: deliberate reading. The Stoics, especially Seneca, championed deep engagement with texts as a way to cultivate wisdom, patience, and clarity. In an age where endless scrolling fragments our attention, Stoic reading is an antidote. slow, intentional, and transformative. Seneca's letters to Lucilius weren't just advice, they were conversations meant to be savored, reread, and annotated. He warned against hoarding books like trophies without absorbing their lessons. Imagine the difference between skimming 100 headlines and spending an hour with a single passage, wrestling with its meaning. That's the Stoic way. To put this into practice, start with 3 foundational texts. First, Seneca's Letters from a Stoic. Pick 1 letter a week, underline lines that challenge you, and jot down how they apply to a current struggle. Second, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Read a page each morning, then paraphrase it in your journal as if giving advice to a friend. Third, Epictetus' Enchiridion. Highlight commands like, don't demand that things go as you wish, and for each, design a tiny action, say, pausing before complaining when plans change. The key, treat these books like training manuals, not entertainment. Seneca wrote, you must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works. So close the tabs, silence the notifications, and let the Stoics mentor you 1 deliberate page at a time. Coming up, we'll explore how to cultivate indifference to praise and criticism, because true freedom, as the Stoics taught, comes from mastering your reactions, not seeking external validation. Now, let's turn to a principle that can free you from the emotional roller coaster of others' opinions, cultivating indifference to praise and criticism. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, mastered this skill, treating flattery and insults with the same calm detachment. Why? Because both are fleeting, often rooted in others' biases, not your true worth. Picture this: a coworker showers you with praise one day, then dismisses your ideas the next. The Stoic response, a simple thank you to both. Not because you're passive, but because you've anchored your self-worth to something deeper, your own integrity. As Marcus wrote in his journal, it's not what others say or do that upsets you, but your judgment about those things. Here's how to practice this today. First, when complimented, pause, acknowledge the kindness, but remind yourself that praise doesn't define you. Second, when criticized, ask, is this true? If yes, learn from it. If not, let it pass like background noise. Third, try a neutral response challenge for a week. Reply to all feedback, positive or negative, with the same polite gratitude. You'll quickly see how little power others' words hold over your peace. The goal isn't to become emotionless, but to stop handing others the remote control to your self-esteem. As Marcus put it, the opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. So focus on your actions, not the applause or the boos that follow. Next, we'll dive into the quiet power of doing good in secret, a practice that strips away the need for recognition and connects you to the purest form of virtue. Now, let's explore a practice that strips away the need for external validation, doing good in secret. The Stoics believed true virtue isn't about applause or recognition, but about acting with integrity when no one is watching. Imagine the quiet power of anonymously paying for a stranger's meal or leaving a heartfelt note for someone to find. These acts aren't just kind, they're liberating because they free you from the trap of virtue signaling, where good deeds become performances rather than genuine expressions of character. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to wash away the dust of praise, focusing instead on the purity of his actions. Here's how you can embody this today. First, choose a small, anonymous act of kindness, maybe topping up a parking meter for a stranger or donating to a cause without leaving your name. The key is secrecy. Resist the urge to share it online or even mention it to friends. Second, reflect on how it feels to give without expectation. You'll notice a quiet joy that doesn't depend on others' approval. Third, make this a monthly habit, scaling up the impact while keeping the anonymity. This isn't about suppressing generosity, it's about refining it. When you remove the need for recognition, you align with the Stoic ideal of acting according to nature, where goodness is its own reward. As Seneca wrote, a gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver. so let your kindness be like the wind, unseen but deeply felt. Next, we'll step into the rhythm of a Stoic day, where morning and evening rituals become anchors for clarity and purpose. Now, let's step into the rhythm of a Stoic day, where morning and evening rituals become anchors for clarity and purpose. The Stoics understood that how you start and end your day shapes everything in between. Imagine waking up not to the chaos of notifications, but to a moment of stillness, a chance to align your mind before the world demands your attention. This is the power of premeditation, a practice Marcus Aurelius used to prepare for the day's challenges. At dawn, he'd ask himself, "What virtue will I cultivate today?" Not as a vague wish, but as a deliberate intention. Here's how you can build your own morning ritual. First, rise early, just 5 minutes before your usual time, and find a quiet space. Next, take 3 deep breaths to ground yourself. Then, ask 2 questions. What obstacles might I face today? And how will I meet them with courage and wisdom? This isn't about predicting the future, but about mentally rehearsing resilience. Finally, set one small, virtuous goal, like patience in a frustrating meeting or generosity toward a difficult person. Keep it simple but meaningful. As the day winds down, the Stoics turn to reflection. Seneca called evenings the judge of the day, a time to review actions, not with self-criticism but with honest curiosity. Your evening ritual might look like this. First, put away distractions and light a candle or dim the lights, a signal to your mind that it's time to unwind. Then journal 3 things: 1 act you're proud of, 1 lesson learned, and 1 moment of gratitude. No fluff, just truth. Finally, release the day's burdens with a Stoic reminder: what's done is done. Tomorrow is a new canvas. To make this stick, here's a customizable checklist you can adapt. Mornings, wake early, breathe, premeditate obstacles, set a virtue goal. Evenings, disconnect, journal, reflect, release. Adjust the steps to fit your life. Maybe you add a short walk at dawn or a cup of tea at dusk. The key is consistency, not perfection. These rituals aren't about adding more to your plate, they're about creating space to live intentionally. As Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you must. By framing your days with purpose, you'll find that simplicity isn't about doing less, but about doing what truly matters. Next, we'll stretch our perspective beyond the daily grind, exploring how thinking in decades can transform fleeting stress into lasting purpose. Now, let's zoom out from the daily rhythms and consider the bigger picture, because Stoicism isn't just about managing today, but about crafting a life of meaning over time. Seneca once wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it," a reminder that how we perceive time determines its value. Ever met someone who hits their 40s or 50s and suddenly feels trapped, as if their best years are behind them? That's the illusion of the midlife crisis talking. The Stoics would argue it's not about running out of time, but about misusing the time we've already had. Here's the shift. Instead of measuring your life in years left, measure it in virtues lived. Imagine projecting yourself a decade into the future. What kind of person do you want to be? Not richer or more famous, but wiser, kinder, more resilient. That's your true currency. Start by sketching a 10-year plan, but not the typical career and goals checklist. Focus on character. Ask yourself, what 3 Stoic virtues, courage, temperance, justice, or wisdom, do I want to deepen by then? How will I practice them daily? For example, if justice is your aim, you might commit to mentoring others or advocating for fairness in small, consistent ways. Break this down further. Every year, set a virtue theme, say patience 1 year, integrity the next. Then, each month, choose a specific action to embody it. If your annual theme is courage, a monthly challenge could be having that difficult conversation you've avoided or starting a project that scares you. The key is to think in cycles of growth, not rigid milestones. Seneca warned against postponing virtue. While we wait for life, life passes. To make this tangible, try this exercise. Grab a notebook and write 2 letters. The first is from your future self 10 years from now, thanking you for the choices that made them proud. The second is from a regretful version of you, mourning the time wasted on trivial things. Compare them. Which path feels more aligned with the Stoic ideal of a life well lived? This long-view thinking dissolves petty stresses. A missed promotion or a fleeting embarrassment won't matter in a decade, but how you responded to them will. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think, not as morbid but as motivation. Every day is a brushstroke on the canvas of your legacy. Next, we'll simplify decision-making by applying Stoic filters to our choices, cutting through the noise of modern overwhelm. Now, let's tackle one of the most practical tools Stoicism offers for cutting through life's endless choices. Every day, we're bombarded with decisions, some trivial, some life-changing, and the sheer volume can leave us paralyzed. But here's the Stoic shortcut. Before committing to anything, run it through what I call the virtue filters. Ask yourself, does this align with wisdom, courage, justice, or temperance? These 4 pillars were the bedrock of Stoic ethics, and they're just as powerful today. Take a mundane example, scrolling social media for an hour. Filter it. Does it feed wisdom, or is it just mindless distraction? Does it require courage, or is it avoidance? Is it just fair to your time and goals, or does it steal energy from better pursuits? Does it reflect temperance or indulgence? Suddenly, the choice becomes clear. This isn't about rigid rules, but about creating a mental checkpoint to pause and align actions with your deeper values for bigger decisions, like changing jobs or ending a relationship. The filters work even better. Imagine you're offered a high-paying role that clashes with your integrity. Courage says, walk away. Justice asks, who does this harm? Wisdom reminds you, short-term gain isn't worth long-term regret. Temperance whispers, enough is enough. The Stoics didn't believe in overcomplicating morality. If a choice doesn't pass at least one filter, it's likely noise, not virtue. Try this today. Pick 3 decisions you're wrestling with, big or small. Write them down, then apply each filter. You'll notice 2 things. First, many options fall away instantly. Second, the right path often feels lighter, even if it's harder. That's your inner Stoic nodding in approval. As Epictetus put it, first say what you would be, then do what you have to do. The filters bridge that gap. Next, we'll explore how to release the weight of the past, because clinging to yesterday's mistakes is the opposite of Stoic simplicity. Now, let's turn to a principle that can free you from one of the heaviest burdens we carry, the past. Stoics called this idea sympatheia, the profound understanding that everything in life is interconnected. Every event, every mistake, every regret has shaped you, but clinging to them only weighs you down. Think of it like this: holding on to past failures is like dragging an anchor behind you while trying to swim forward. The water's already moved on. Why haven't you? Here's a powerful exercise to help you release what no longer serves you. It's called the burning ceremony, and before you worry, no actual fire is needed unless you choose to. Take a quiet moment to write down your regrets, old grudges, or painful memories on slips of paper. Then, symbolically let them go. You could tear them up, bury them, or if it's safe, light them in a bowl and watch the smoke carry them away. As you do, remind yourself these moments were part of your journey, but they don't define your future. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The past is gone, the future isn't here yet." There's only the present. This ritual isn't about erasing history, it's about making peace with it. Try this today. Start small. Pick one regret that's been lingering in your mind, write it down and release it. Notice how much lighter you feel. That's sympatheia in action. The past is just a thread in the larger tapestry of your life, not the whole picture. Next, we'll explore how to train for life like an athlete, turning every challenge into strength. Now let's shift gears and talk about training not just for a sport but for life itself. The Stoics called this ascesis, a disciplined practice of strengthening your mind and character, much like an athlete prepares for the Olympics. Think of it this way: just as a runner builds endurance mile by mile, you can build resilience challenge by challenge. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Here's how to put this into action. Design a quarterly virtue challenge where you focus on cultivating one core Stoic quality for an entire month. For example, dedicate 30 days to courage. Start small. Speak up in a meeting when you'd normally stay quiet, or tackle a task you've been avoiding. Next month, shift to temperance practice, saying no to distractions or indulgences that don't serve you. The key is to treat these challenges like athletic training: consistent, intentional, and incremental. Epictetus, a former slave who became a Stoic master, famously said, "No great thing is created suddenly, so approach this like a coach would. Track your efforts, celebrate small wins, and adjust when you stumble." By the end of the year, you'll have honed 4 virtues that transform how you face adversity. Up next, we'll explore the ultimate Stoic test: how reflecting on mortality can sharpen your focus on what truly matters. Now, let's turn to the final and perhaps most profound Stoic practice, the ultimate test of how we live our lives. Rule 30 brings us full circle, back to the concept of Memento Mori, remembering that we will die. But this time, it's not just about reflection, it's about action. The Stoics believed that confronting mortality isn't morbid, it's clarifying. It strips away distractions and forces us to ask, what legacy do I want to leave? How do I want to be remembered? Here's a powerful exercise to put this into practice. Sit down and write your own eulogy, not the one others might deliver, but the one you'd want them to deliver. Describe the kind of person you aspired to be, the virtues you lived by, the impact you had, the relationships you nurtured. Did you act with courage? Were you a source of wisdom and kindness? This exercise isn't about perfection, it's about direction. When you're done, keep it somewhere visible. Let it serve as a daily compass guiding your choices. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's the power of this practice. It transforms the abstract idea of death into a tool for living with purpose. Every decision, from how you spend your time to how you treat others, becomes sharper when viewed through this lens. And that's the Stoic secret: using the awareness of life's brevity not to fear the end, but to make the most of the time you have. Now, as we bring this journey to a close, let's take a moment to reflect on the 30 Stoic rules we've explored together. Think of them as your toolkit for living a simpler, more intentional life. Each rule a tool designed to help you cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters. From mastering what you can control to embracing discomfort, from practicing gratitude to remembering your mortality, these principles aren't just philosophy, they're practical steps you can start using today. Here's my challenge to you: pick one rule that resonates most and commit to it for the next 30 days. Whether it's journaling like Marcus Aurelius, taking on a discomfort challenge, or writing your eulogy as we just discussed, give it your full attention. Notice how it shifts your perspective, your habits, even your peace of mind. And when you do, I'd love to hear about it. Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other and grow together. To send us off, I'll leave you with these words from Epictetus, a reminder that wisdom begins with clarity and ends with action. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Your life is your masterpiece, crafted with purpose. Thank you for joining me on this Stoic journey. If you found value here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content like this, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a lesson. Until next time, live simply and live well.